All right, Casey, I'm taking a look now at your research report. I do these by video because it's a little easier for me when they're for these bigger papers, and my students tend to like it too. So feel free to let me know what you think about it. I welcome feedback on them. So let's go right into this. So you've got your page numbering up here, your formatting here looks great, title looks good, so great formatting to start with. So let's see how your writing actually looks. Your introduction here looks pretty good, short and sweet. For most people who grew up around Parkersburg, Virginia. Okay, so it's not too big of a deal for you to refer to yourself like my family here in the introductory like hook in the introduction, but just be sure you don't use I, me, or my throughout the rest of the paper. Just here in your hook is about the only place you really should do that. Okay, most of it you should keep yourself out of it and make it all about the report and the topic. All right, so let's see. That was okay. So your this appears to be your thesis statement. This research report investigates the big question: to what extent should DuPont be held? Okay, so actually, what you need to do is take this thesis statement and move it right here. Let it be the last sentence for your introduction instead of a first sentence of another paragraph. It should all your introduction should tip or your thesis should at least in academics in college or in my class, put it that way. Your thesis statement should we usually expect to see it at the end of the introduction. So you want to just move it up there. Also, you want to take out this excess spacing here, and you should be able to do that just by simply hitting delete there. So yeah, that's all you should all be double spaced, no extra spacing. Okay. All right. Let's see. So yeah, move that up here. Then when this becomes the first sentence of this new paragraph, you should probably say something like to answer this question, or to answer this is to yeah to answer this question. Really, technically speaking, a thesis statement also shouldn't be a question. It shouldn't end with a question mark. But I see how you've written. I see what you're doing here. So it might be okay because of that. All right. Okay, now so here you're still using I. So you definitely want to make sure you take yourself out of the paper. That's one of the big things, is to make sure that you don't have any I, me, or my in there. Because you should be invisible in a professional report like this. Okay, so take yourself out of it. Oh, and also, by the way, here you should have actually this spacing needs to be there, so because you need to fill that in with the subtitle literature review. So you need to add that in there, and you need to put it in bold. Okay. So note, take another look at the assignment, the sample, if you need to see how this stuff should look. Okay. Um, Now these blue lines tell you that there may be an issue. How the state and legal system have responded. I think have is probably correct there. It's probably not quite right because it doesn't always get it right. Sometimes it doesn't get it right. But you're saying how the state and legal system, so that's two things. So it should be have is probably correct there. Uh, how people in the Parkersburg, yeah, it's just telling you should drop the word the, but I don't think you would need to. I think it's just fine the way it is. So Some of those you should check, and you should always check and make sure there's something that's, because sometimes it'll be that you're missing a comma or something like that. But when it's just telling you that it should be worded differently, you may be able to ignore that unless it actually is, really badly worded or something, right? Okay, so, oh, here's your literature review. Okay, so I misunderstood what was going on here. So this whole paragraph probably ought to be removed and made part of your literature review. Okay, your introduction. Well, I'm just going to tell you to go back to the go back and look at how it's written in the sample. That's what really needs to be done, because I'm not sure, maybe you didn't use the sample or didn't follow it as closely as you maybe should have. So go back, follow that sample closely so that you can see what goes in the introduction, what goes in the literature review, the kind of information that you want to put in there. Okay. The literature review should just be talking about what is known about the topic, and the literature review is also where you should have sources. So here we go. So here you have the literature review. Um, okay. Um, all right. Once you get to the thesis statement, you need to properly introduce your sources, like by their author, if they have one. If they don't have an author, you want to introduce it by the company and talk about what the company is, or maybe make a statement about what kind of company it is or something like that, and then probably provide the proper in-text citation here in the parenthetical and stuff. So you have a fair amount of work here to do, and I'm just going to basically I'm going to kind of stop here and tell you just need to really reread the sample. Really, you really ought to just like take, maybe you probably know how to do this already, but take your paper and snap it over to the right here, and then in this side put the sample, and just have them side by side, and that way as you're looking at the sample you can follow it and fix the things in your paper to match, to kind of look like what the sample looks like. Okay, remember, no big gaps like this, should all be double spaced. um, Citations need some work. um, Method section, don't forget to indent the first sentence. You always should indent that first line of a new paragraph. Um, Again, take yourself out of it. No I, me, or my. Okay. Um, the information that you gleaned from the from your actual interview, where the person is talking, and the stuff you want to say that they talked about, that does not need to be in the methods. The method is just talking about what you did. So what you found, the results section, that's where you should actually talk about what Mayor Joyce said, right? So in other words, your literature or your method section is just you're only providing the information about how you did your research, how you conducted it. You might offer a couple of sample questions, 2 or 3 of your questions that you asked your interviewee, Mayor Joyce, but you don't want to give away all the information that she provided and what she said until you get to the results section. That's where you talk about all that, what she said, and you compare what she said to what your sources are saying. And then, of course, you provide your graphic, which you've done here, so that looks good. Just make sure that you introduce the graphic. You would need to refer to it first here in the sentence or two before it, like in the paragraph before it, to kind of introduce that it's coming, or to introduce it. And then underneath it, the chart has to have a citation under it. It should have a figure number, like figure 1, and then it should have a brief description about what it represents, what it's about, and then it should have the full citation underneath it. Unless it happened to be something you created yourself. Then this, for the source, you would put created by author. But if it's coming from an outside source, you would put the words data source and then a colon, and then the actual full citation, including the URL and everything. Okay, then you talk about it here. That's good. And a lot of what you're doing here, I think, might also work with the discussion. So maybe you could. The discussion is really where you just tell your audience what you want them to understand from all of your results. What do you want them to get out of reading your results? Okay, so you got a little bit of work here to do to fix this all up. It looks like in some places it might be extraneous information that you really don't need, but that's up to you to figure out what you should have and what you shouldn't. So read that sample and use that sample to try to do a better job with your actual, in-text citations and formatting and stuff, and putting in here what needs to be put in here. It also shows you in the works in that sample shows you what this should actually look like, because these should be tabbed in. This should be hanging indented. Now, the easiest way to hang indent is to put your cursor here, and I'll literally show you what you do. All you do is you just put your cursor right there, and you hit Control and the letter T. Now, it did not work, and the reason it didn't work is because you probably did some working within this. You probably did some like changes in the spacing and stuff. And when you do that, that messes up its ability to work, for the Control T to work. So what you might have to do is you just might have to work with it a little bit and try to, yeah, like it right there, that's going to work. You can just tab these in individually. Now, something else you'll need to do those, you want to try to get this spacing here filled in. So you might have to put like your cursor here. Let's see, let's do this. Let's go back to this point and then just try that's not gonna work. Yeah, so it's not gonna work because, like I said, you've made so many changes, you've done stuff with it when you put it in here, that it's not allowing us to do that. So what you might have to do is you might have to just write it again. I know that sounds kind of annoying. I wouldn't. I'm not even going to worry about the right spacing. If you'll just do what I just did, if you'll just put your cursor there and just tab each line in, I won't even worry about the spacing over here, because it's not that big of a deal. Okay, but you do want to have the. Let me try here, see if this works with the Control T. No, that's not going to work. So, but this does seem to work. So just do that. Just tab it in, each individual line in, for each entry, and that way the only thing that should be hanging over here would be the first word of the entry. Okay, now this part down here you actually really didn't need. When I told you all to do this, I was considering my old Google Classroom ways of doing things. So you can literally just delete this copy below here and just keep this part up here. And what you'll need to do is you'll need to go through and you'll need to make all of your changes. To fix it, you'll need to make all of your changes, and you need to highlight everything that you change and put an annotation by it as well. You highlight it obviously with your highlighter button here, and then you use review, this review button up here. You'll click on it and you'll see where it says new comment, or easier than that even, if you highlight something. So let's say you needed to change, let's say you're going to indicate that you deleted a sentence here between these two. You could highlight like this much of it, and then you could right click and you could put new comment, and that would put the comment box over here, and then you could just put deleted sentence about blah blah blah, and that way. But that's what you got to do for everything that you fix. You got to highlight it and annotate it so I can tell what you fixed and how you, so that way it's easy for me to go down, look through it later, and to make sure that you've done everything you need to do to fix it. Okay, so that's very, very important. You have to do that. I need to see a whole bunch of highlights, and those highlights should be all the way through the paper. If I only see highlights on the first page or two, then I'm going to feel like you maybe didn't go through and fix everything, and that will affect the grade. So you definitely have to do that. All right. Also, I would highly suggest that once you fix everything, that you could resubmit it to me, and I can give you more feedback on that way. We can make sure you get it really, really well done before the final portfolio. Okay, that's it for this video. As always, let me know if you have questions.